drones are becoming more common, so I feel like I should talk a little bit about drones and unmanned aerial vehicles, otherwise known as UAVs. So fasten your seat belts, grab onto your chairs, because I'm about to fly you through history to where some of the first recorded assault-based unmanned aerial vehicles, what they were. So in Austria, in 1849, in Austria, they made balloons, big balloons, that flew overhead, that had bombs that would drop over Venice. The objective today is to inform you about the progression of these unmanned aerial vehicles. Otherwise, so there's the balloon from Austria, and I don't know if that's an exact picture, but it is pretty accurate to what they were doing in Austria. They made about 200 of these balloons, and they put bombs on them, and they were unmanned. Then, around the early 1900s, the US started making airplanes that were much more accurate, because as you can imagine, the balloons they made depended on the wind and many other factors. There were no electrical devices like fans that could power the balloons. So as you can imagine, the balloons sometimes blew back into Austria. Sometimes they just blew up in the air, and they did very little damage to Venice. But Venice, as an aside, wound up surrendering anyway, but it might not have been due to these balloons they were making. So these are some of the first unmanned vehicles. Then, of course, as we progressed a little bit over time, other countries as well, like Russia, started making these airplanes. And as you can tell, probably from the picture, that it's much more advanced from the top picture. That one. This picture right here it was created by the US, but it was launched via catapult. And when it got over where they needed it to go, about 50 miles of a distance away, the wings fell off, they stopped the engine, and it plummeted to the ground to where it carried about a 300-pound load of a bomb, which is very big. So you can see the progression. Now, we come a little bit to today because I just wanted to fly you through history for a bit, but really the main part of the talk is about today's drones and our progression through there. So you can see we have the helicopters now that came before the drones. The helicopters, of course, one of the problems that you had with them is they're very difficult to fly. And if you spend more money, you could buy the better quality, easier to fly helicopters, but they were still somewhat difficult to fly. And you had what they called indoor, and then you had outdoor helicopters. The indoor helicopters mainly were smaller, but if you took them outside, you would just crash all over the place, and you would waste your $60 little toy that you bought. But if you spend several $100s, of course, you can get a badder helicopter that's easier to fly, that has more features like a hover. But, okay, today, though, you have drones that are much more stable than helicopters. And they have many more features. Like, you can attach cameras a little bit more easily on there. And they had multiple rotors on top, unlike helicopters. That allowed for easier stability. Maybe you have 4 to 6 to 8, however many you needed for the stability. But again, though, they become a little bit more expensive for the amount of quality that you need. But you can buy them as small as the kind that you can fit inside of the palm of your hand, and those are mainly for indoors. But you can adjust them, you can hook them up to your computers, you can hook them up to your tablets, you can have screens to be able to see what you're seeing. We have some aerial photos here for you to look at. This one here is just overhead of a residential area, and this was taken from a drone. Sometimes these drones, especially the overhead cameras, they have a dome shaped. Not all of them, but sometimes they do. This one here is of a parking lot, and they take excellent photos and pictures and recordings. And you can use these drones for many different purposes. Here's one of the beach. People just playing on the beach, and you can see, if you were to look at this picture on your computer, you can see a lot of the details of the splashes and the people, and maybe a few sharks in there somewhere. This one here is from the Eiffel Tower, of course, as you can tell. Very good picture. Now we've reached to what are drones used for? What can we use them for? Yeah, they're fun little toys, but if you can't justify buying one for some people, me included, what can you use them for? One is, instead of paying people to go up on top of towers and look at damages, you can actually just fly the drone up to the top of a tower. This is a cell phone tower, and you can look for damages. Here's another tower. You can see some of the fine details in there if you were to look at the picture up close and see some of the damages from the weather, from if a tornado just happened, you might be able to do that. Because I hear to pay people to go up to these towers sometimes can be expensive. But I will go ahead and say, because I'm talking about hiring people to go up there, people think that because robots and artificial intelligence and drones are being made, that people are losing their jobs. That is the case to a point, but at the same time, jobs are being created. It's just that I think jobs are being moved to different kinds of positions. Sometimes we need to adjust. The Amazon.com, you may or may not have heard about it. They are working on a project to deliver packages straight to the door via drones. So the drone will pick up the package and carry it to your doorstep. The CEO said something like 4 to 6 years is when they plan on having this project up and running. So they are working on it. And as Napoleon Hill said, whatever a mind can conceive and believe, we can achieve. So it will happen, we just need to prepare for that. If we have a couple of minutes, I will show you this video here.
Man to exit there.
Yeah, it's just something different. This is another chasing down criminals via cops. And all politics aside, it can be beneficial. And you'll see here. And I won't go full screen. Companies are even paying for custom drone making. It had features as needed. It's a camera on the bottom that you could adjust remotely. You could have infrared for night vision. he would have been blind going into the wall without knowing what that guy was doing, because that guy had a gun. So the police would have been blind going into that complex. But with the help of the drone, they were able to arrest him.